Good morning. Welcome to King's Report News Hour for a Wednesday. And today is on the heavenly calendar, it is the sixth day, the second month and sixth day by the heavenly calendar. Temyodo is sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin-mun. And every Wednesday we do a review of some of the theological teachings of a true father, don't we? And I forgot that until the bell rang, until the program began. And so I was all ready to do the usual broadcast. Give me just a minute to bring up the family pledge. Last week we did the 1 and 2 of the family pledge, and I had intended to do number three, this week. So let's do that. So instead of talking about the inauguration and a couple other things I was going to do, but all that can wait. All that can wait, because the most important thing is the big picture, the biggest picture. And so we will get to that in just a second here. Let me knock out all this other stuff that I was preparing, so that maybe this will come up. Okay. Well, it's having a hard time. My PowerPoint is having a hard time making its way through. Here we go. Now it's coming. All right. Here we go. Okay. And then let's go down. Where we were. Okay. So let's look at this. Let me see if I can share this with you. Okay, here we go. All right, so already in the past, we've talked about family, we've talked about Cheongguk, and the thing to remember about Cheongguk, of course, is that it is actually a shortened version of a longer name that Father gave to the ideal world. The name that he gave, the English translation is the nation or kingdom of peace and unity. Well, cosmic nation or cosmic kingdom of peace and unity. And in Korean, there would be the Cheonju Pyeonghwa Dongyilguk, Cheonju Pyeonghwa Dongyilguk, 7 syllables. And so Father said, okay, well, we got Cheonju at the beginning, so let's take the first syllable, Cheon, and at the very end we have Kuk, which can be translated as either nation or kingdom. So let's take that, Cheon and Kuk, and then let's add one more from the middle. Tongil is the unification. It's a Tongil. So let's take the il from Tongil. And so then Cheon Il Kuk is the shortened version. I don't think abbreviation is quite the right word, but anyway, shortened version of that longer name. We tend to forget that there is this longer name associated with this in the background of this. The longer name is the cosmic nation or cosmic kingdom of peace and unity. And that is Father's idea, Father's vision. And remember that for that nation to exist, we need, let's see here, we need 6 things, right? Remember the 6 things? Let's go back. I think that was on, what was that? Was that 19? Down here. The 6 things that are necessary. I believe this is it here. Yes, here we go. So in order to realize a unified world of peace, and this is unified world of peace here refers to Cheongguk, right? Because Cheongguk is the cosmic nation or cosmic nation of peace and unity. And so to realize a world of peace, we need these 6 things. First is to know God with certainty. not just to believe in God, but to know Him with certainty. And the second is to know the spirit world with certainty. Many Christians don't really know the spirit world, especially Protestant Christians. The Catholics and Orthodox are much more aware of the spirit world than Protestant Christians. But we need to know the spirit world with certainty, and also know true parents with certainty, true parents or Christ with certainty. Right? And also, and certainty means that there's no room for doubt. For example, we say we know God with certainty. That means that I know God. I know that God exists. There's not a question of believing or not believing. I know He exists because I know the person sitting next to me, my wife, my son. How do I know that do I believe my wife exists? No, I know she exists. And I know it for a certainty. My son, I know he exists for a certainty. But when it comes to God, we say, well, there are these arguments this way, that way. No, listen, we got to know for a certainty that God does exist. And that is the very first condition for this ideal world to come about. Spirit world, true parents, and then know with a certainty that we are fallen human beings, sinners. And this is important because, many religions really don't talk about sin or talk about how human beings have deviated from God's ideal. And even some mainline Christian denominations have this wrong, right? One United Methodist minister once tried to explain to me that sin is actually the difference between God's ideal and where we are today. And so he had no concept that we had deviated from God's ideal. Instead, we were sort of going through this a growing process over many millennia of approaching God's ideal. But Adam and Eve were created so that they could achieve God's ideal in their lifetime. But they deviated from that, and they fell. And so it's important that United Methodists and whoever else believes that sort of differently, that they understand that we are fallen human beings. That to say that we are sinners is one thing. That's they're accepted that sure we're sinners, but no, we fell. Human beings fell. This is the important thing. Excuse me there. And know the principle of restoration through indemnity with certainty. Principle of restoration through indemnity. Right? And I think have we explained that well enough? In other words, if you spill the milk, someone's got to clean it up, right? Someone's got to take a rag and clean it up. And ideally, it's the person who spilled the milk who should be doing the cleaning up. Anyway, we have principle of restoration through indemnity, and it's been a consistent theme throughout God's providential history, his history of salvation. And also know the human portion of responsibility with certainty. Now, restoration through indemnity, this is something that only came into being after the fall. But human portion of responsibility, that existed before the fall. That's a part. Human portion of responsibility and accomplishing that human portion of responsibility is an important part of God's providence, right? And this gets into interesting that I was thinking about this today. This gets into how we understand God's activity in the world today, God's involvement in the world today. Now, atheists and sort of not necessarily philosophical atheists, but just sort of casual atheists will say something like, well, for example, there's a British comedian, Ricky Gervais, is it? Ricky Gervais, who I was, one of his rants, I guess, was saying, why does God give AIDS to babies in Africa? And of course, the principal answer is that God does not give AIDS to babies in Africa. And AIDS came about as a result of human action, and it is the human action that creates a situation where babies are born with AIDS, with the HIV virus. I'm trying to go here to a certain. No, shoot. That's not what I wanted. Okay, come on. In the teachings of True Father, we have the direct dominion and the indirect dominion. And it's important for us to understand this very clearly. Indirect dominion is where the human portion of responsibility is being fulfilled. We go through the growing, and the indirect dominion is the growing period, where there are the three stages: formation, growth, and completion. Some people say perfection, I say completion. Formation, growth, and completion. And then each of those is divided also into three levels. And God cannot intervene directly. Well, like the label says, it's the indirect dominion, the period of indirect dominion. But once we go through the 9 stages and then go into the 10th, which is the direct dominion, then God and human beings become one in love. And as it says in the eighth stanza of the family pledge. And during those 9 stages, 9 levels, which is where we are now, okay, unless some of you guys have already completed yourselves, but if you're complete, then you have no business watching this video. Leave us alone. So, congratulations, leave us alone. Joking. Yeah, actually, if you're complete, then I invite you to take over this job. No, this is my portion of responsibility. No, don't take over this job. It's my portion of responsibility. Okay. Anyway, seriously then. So God cannot intervene in our portion of responsibility during the indirect dominion. But does that mean that God does not intervene at all in human affairs? No. We also know that God is very active in human affairs. So how is that? How is it that God is very active in human affairs during the period of the indirect dominion? I'm trying to get to Matthew chapter 5. And because Jesus goes into this in the Sermon on the Mount, among other places, but especially here. And of course, Jesus, of course, goes into, I'm looking for the ask and you shall receive quote, which is, this is, I'm looking at the, all right, well, in Matthew 5, it's a little bit different from what I was thinking. But anyway, Jesus says that ask and you shall receive. And this is a famous example of the portion of responsibility. God can intervene if we ask. And he cannot intervene if we don't ask. And so that is where prayer comes in. But of course, Father encourages us to don't, be asking all the time. I want this, I want that, I want a yacht, I want a Mercedes, I want a. So that's kind of the prosperity gospel, which Father very strongly discourages. But we are asking, though, for things that are public, not for ourselves, but for God's will to be done, asking that God's will be done. Or asking that world leaders, the president of our country, leaders of our country, understand God's will and be able to act according to God's will. And then God can take those prayers as a condition to accomplish His will. Last year during the leading up to the election on November 5th, we did a lot of asking, right? We did a lot of asking. We asked that Donald Trump be able to win that election because Father had indicated to the Second King that this was crucial. We could not have a communist like Kamala Harris winning the election. It was crucial. And this was a historic election, as important as the election of 1860 when Lincoln was elected, or even 1864 when Lincoln was reelected against a Democratic candidate who wanted to sort of bring an end to the Civil War through a negotiated settlement. But Lincoln won that election and fought the war to the end, to the victory. So we did a lot of asking last year, and God was able to intervene. As the king has said, there was a very, really, when you consider what the Democrats had done in 2020, and these are not allegations. We've had many eyewitness accounts, right, of what happened in 2020. Although the evidence could not, for various reasons, could not be properly presented to courts. But considering what happened in 2020, there was a very strong possibility that this election would also be stolen. But as President Trump himself has said, it came out it was too big to rig, too big to rig. And so God intervened, Spirit world intervened in that, so that America and the world could have a second chance. And that's what we're going through right now. And we continue to ask, and also the Bible says that if someone is sick, then also we can pray for them. Although I should say that Father warns that if you pray for a sick person, then that indemnity that the person is paying through the sickness may come to you. Okay, so be careful. Be careful about how you pray for a sick person. When I pray for a sick person, I just pray that God's will be done, and that the person who is sick can sort of deepen his relationship with God through this sickness. And I've seen that happen, by the way. I've seen people's character change for the better, much better, but much better, as they go through experiences of pain and suffering. Quite frankly, some very difficult. I've seen people going through some very difficult pain, but in the end, the pain helps them to develop their character. It becomes a kind of a catalyst for them to develop their character. And so then that makes me realize that, asking that pain be relieved is not necessarily a good thing for us to be praying. And we cannot take for granted that we know what is best for a person, or that we even know what God's will is, right? That we even know what God's will is. For example, let's say, for example, if we've been alive at the time of the time when Moses was trying to get the Israelites out of Egypt, and there's a lot of pain and suffering going on then. And so if we had prayed for the pain and suffering to stop, that would have been against God's will. But if we had prayed for the people of Israel, the Hebrews, to accept Moses as their leader and to unite around Moses so that they could leave Egypt. Of course, this is hindsight, like thousands of years hindsight. That's why I can say that. But this is an illustration of praying sort of from a humanistic point of view is not necessarily the best thing for us to do. Humanistic point of view. Humanistic, I mean, oh, please relieve this person's pain, things like that. I think and it's better probably to say, okay, well, God, um, please let this person deepen his relationship with you through this experience of pain that he is going through. That might be a better way, but you can uh, think about this or pray about this yourself. What is the best way to pray for someone who's going through sickness? As the Father has warned, just telling you, the Father has warned that if you just automatically pray for him to get well, then that sickness or that indemnity may come upon the person who is doing the praying. So Father said, be careful. So, so indirect dominion, God can and does. He's very much involved in our lives. He does intervene in our lives when he has the condition to do so. But he's not giving AIDS to babies in Africa like Ricky Gervais and many other. He's not the only one. This is kind of a common thing among atheists. If God exists, how come he's doing these terrible things to people? It's people that are doing those things. People that are doing those things. AIDS came about as a result of the promiscuous and irresponsible animal-like sexual activity of human beings, sexual activity that is specifically um, banned in Leviticus 18. All sorts of, and not just homosexuality, not just bestiality, but also the whole, well, the whole list in Leviticus 18. You can go there and check the list for yourself if you want. But all those things are going on. God didn't just make up the rules. He's telling us, in Leviticus 18 and also through what he's currently teaching through the Second King in terms of absolute sex, he's teaching us the consequences of what happens when we do certain things, the consequences. Anyway, so understanding spirit world and understanding the portion of responsibility with certainty. Our portion of responsibility is to develop our character. That is fundamentally what it is to complete our character so that we can become one with God's shimjong, shimjong being the irrepressible impulse of the heart to give love to a object partner so as to experience love and joy. All right, so these 6 things are necessary, Father says, to bring about a world of peace, or in other words, Tonyuk, 6 things. Know God with certainty, spirit with certainty, true parents with certainty, know with certainty that we are fallen human beings, and know the principle of restoration through indemnity with certainty, and know human portion of responsibility also with certainty. All right, so then let's go back then to the 3. Okay. Oh, I keep clicking the wrong place. Okay, let's see here. I'm trying to. Whoop! Wait a second. Hello. Oh no, I'm no longer online, am I? uh, okay. Uh, Okay, well, looks like I clicked the wrong tab and killed the broadcast. What's happening right now? Am I on? Am I online? We did? Okay. Yeah, I X'd out of Zoom, yeah. Yeah, now you're muted. So I need to know what happened from the viewer's perspective. Okay, but some part of what I said didn't go out, I think. That's interesting because I X'd out of Zoom, so I assumed that. So right now I just came back into Zoom. I don't know how the broadcast was happening without my being in Zoom. Anyway, so we were talking about the human portion of responsibility, children in Africa getting AIDS and so forth. Okay. Anyway, so my mistake, I think. I think it was my mistake. Maybe it wasn't my mistake. Maybe maybe I didn't make a mistake. I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to number 3, and I'll try not to stop the Zoom. All right, let's see here. But I do want to. Yeah, you see right now. Oh, I see. On my taskbar, the Zoom icon sometimes disappears. So it looks like I'm out of Zoom, but I'm not. Okay. Well, that's an interesting development. I've never seen that happen before. Okay. All right. All right. So family pledge number 3, verse 3. Our family, we'll do the English first. Our family, the owner of China Group, pledges to perfect and, okay, I prefer the word complete, the 4 great realms of Shimjong, the 3 great kingships in the realm of the royal family by centering on true love. And there's a great sort of, not necessarily recently, but there has been a great debate over whether it should be great kingships or 3 generation kingships. And the difficulty comes that the word great and the word generation are spelled the same in Korean. Different Chinese characters, different kanji, hancha, but they're spelled the same in Hangul. And so there's some people who say, oh, great kingships is correct. Other people say generations, 3 generations is kingships is correct. But I believe now, after giving it a lot of prayer and thought, that the answer actually is that both are correct. Because the 3 generation kingships are also great kingships, right? They are major kingships. we're talking about the grandparents, the parents, and the grandchildren. So those, and special or grandparent, parents and grandchild, three generation kingship. But so anyway, the four great realms. So let's go take it through in order first. Four great realms of Shimjong, of course, is the four realms of Shimjong. The Shimjong of Shimjong is the source of love. So it's maybe easier for us to think of this as terms of the four great kinds of love, four kinds of love. You have the Shimjong of the children, the child Shimjong, and we have the sibling Shimjong, the Shimjong or love of siblings toward each other, and then the Shimjong of a husband and wife, and then the Shimjong of parents towards their children, or the four kinds of love. Kinds of love might be a sort of an easier way for us to understand it. Love of a child for their parents, the love of children for each other, the siblings, and then the love of husband and wife for each other, and then also the love of parents for their children. So it's in the family that we learn how to love. And we are trained in love. It's kind of the gymnasium of love. And I know there are many families that are dysfunctional, there are many families that break apart. Well, yeah, I mean, that kind of proves that this is where we are practicing love or learning to love, and sometimes the gymnasium goes bankrupt if it's not doing a good job. people don't want to practice there. They don't want to try to learn there. They leave the gym, they leave the family, and families break apart, unfortunately, and that's a reality in today's world. But the basic fact, though, is that the family is the fundamental unit for the kingdom of heaven. And fathers, if you read Chun Sung-gyong, says over and over and over again, no one goes to heaven alone. No one goes to heaven alone. You can go to paradise alone. Yeah. The Father says that paradise is a waiting room. A waiting room. That's the term he uses for paradise. Waiting for what? Waiting for Jesus to come again so that Jesus will bless the people in paradise in marriage so that they can go to heaven. So heaven is a place where families go. Parents, husband and wife together, parents and children, and also the nuclear family with their various relatives, the kinfolk, their tribe, in other words. And Father said the best thing, ideally, it's best if the whole nation can go to heaven together. So that means that parents can't go to heaven without all of their children. All of their children. For a lot of us, that's a pretty high bar. That's a very high bar. Yeah, but the good news is we're all going to go there. But there's one more word that we need to say. Eventually. That's the important word that we sometimes forget to add on. Eventually, we're all going to go there. Yes. Because eventually, we're all going to get this. God created us so that we can learn how to love. Right now, the environment that we are living in makes it difficult for us to do this. But eventually, we'll get it. We'll learn it. You know, maybe not. Not in our lifetimes. Maybe here on Earth, but eventually, humanity is going to do this, get this, and then God's ideal world, God's Chanyugur, the world of the cosmic world of peace and happiness, is going to exist. All right, so that's the four great realms of Shimjong, or the four great realms of Shimjong, and then the three generation kingships or great kingships. I've described already the grandparents, the parents, and the grandchildren, and the realm of the royal family. So as the siblings get their own families, right, they become sort of the royal clan. And this is of course the king's our father's lineage is like this, but also each of our lineages are like that as well, because we are kings and queens. Sort of small k, I suppose, and small q, but we are kings and queens. And then our lineage also branches out in a similar way. And so realm of the royal family is also, we're going to complete that as well. And by centering on true love. Now let's take a look at the Korean, the original Korean of this. Cheonryuk, of course, this is Cheonryuk, right? We studied Hangul before. This is Cheonryuk. It's a three-syllable word. And the first syllable Chun is composed of three letters. Here you can see one here on the upper left, one in the upper right, and then one letter down below. And three of them together are pronounced as Chun. And Il is also a syllable, and it's also composed of three letters. Now, when you're learning Korean, one sort of interesting thing is that all Korean syllables, every syllable in Korean must begin with a consonant, okay? But il begins with a vowel, or at least with a vowel sound, right? So then what do? We have a silent consonant. We have a silent consonant, okay? This consonant, the sort of the circle here, is silent when it comes at the beginning of a syllable. Now that same consonant here comes underneath, right? It comes as the third letter in this syllable, and this is the chong of kajong. So here it's pronounced similar to the English ng, ng. So, but here when it comes at the beginning of the syllable, it's silent. Okay? It's silent here, and also silent here, and silent here. But it's not silent, ng there, and also sarang, love, the word for love. There we go. Again, ng, chung. So this consonant plays an interesting role in spelling, in Hangul spelling. Anyway, so Cheonryuk, and so il is the second syllable, and also has three letters, the silent consonant plus il, two letters, and then kuk is also here. This is also three letters. Now, people get confused because the first syllable here and the first letter here and the third letter here, right? The little sort of angle there, that's the same letter as this one here, the first letter here on the left. It's just that it's written a little bit differently, but it's the same letter. So don't let that fool you. Anyway, Cheonryuk, that's how Cheonryuk is spelled in Korean. Chuin, owner, right? Cheonryuk owner, uri means our. Cheonryuk owner, our. Hajong, family, Hajong. And then un is just a little thing that they throw in to show that Hajong is the predicate of this sentence. And then 참 사랑, 참 true, 사랑, true love. Again, little grammatical thing there, showing that this is the direct object. 참 사랑을 중심하고. So 중심 means a center, and then 하고 makes this a verb. Center is a noun, right? But if you want to take a noun and turn it into a verb, then you add 하고 many times. 중심하고, so centering on true love. So in English, it's our family. 우리 가정은, our family. The owner of Cheonryuk is how the English grammar works out here on this here. 참 사랑을 중심하고, centering on true love. And in here, 하나님, right? And I think probably we all know this word, 하나님. That means God. Shows that this is this is the possessive sort of little element there. Korean language has a lot of these little syllables that are put after words to show the role of that word in the sentence. And so here, this is the possessive. So God's something or other. So we know that whatever comes after this is something that belongs to God. 창조. 창조 means what? Means creation. 창조. 이상 means ideal. Again, 창조 이상인. And then that also connects this ideal creation. Excuse me, I need to take a drink of water here. And let me make sure I'm not running over. Okay. 창조 이상인 전주. Okay. Well, we know 전주, right? We studied about 전주, 평화 통일국, 전주, cosmic, 대가족. 대가족 is another word for family. 가정 and 가족 are a little bit different. 가정, uh, I can't really explain the difference, but they both mean family. I'm not expert enough to be able to explain the difference between the two. But 대 means big, a big family. 천주 대가족을. So big cosmic family, cosmic big family. 형성 means to form. 형성하여. And again here, 하여 is a kind of a conjunction that continues the sentence to the next one. 자유 is freedom. 와 and 평화, peace, freedom, peace. 와 is and 통일, unification. 과 and wa are exactly the same. The only difference is that wa follows a vowel and qua follows a consonant. Isn't grammar fun? freedom and peace, unification and happiness. Okay, happiness, 행복, 의. And again, here we have that possessive little element there. 세계 is world. So world of freedom, peace, unity, and happiness. 세계를. And again, we have that making it, this is a direct object. 완성, I like to translate that as complete in pretty much every instance. 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다. 맹세하나이다 is the main verb of the sentence. I pledge, or we pledge. And I say, well, I pledge or we pledge because that's another aspect of Korean grammar is that many times there is no subject. So you ask yourself, well, who's doing the pledging here? Am I pledging this as an individual? Are we pledging it as a husband and wife, as a family? Well, it's everybody who's reciting this family pledge at a given time. If one person is reciting it, then one person is pledging. If the husband and wife are doing it, then the husband and wife are pledging. And if the whole family is doing it together, then the whole family is pledging. So, 맹세 하나에. There is no specific subject to this pledge. So, 천유국 주인, owner of 천유국, 우리 가정은, our family, 참 사랑을 중심하고, centering on true love. And these Roman numerals here, these are just something that helps to break down the sentence. 하나님의 창조 이상인, so God's ideal of creation, 천주 대가족을 형성하고, to form, 형성 means to form the great family of cosmic great family. And this is a family that extends into the spirit world, includes our ancestors, and it also extends horizontally. If you read Father's analysis or his sort of explanation of this particular verse, it goes both ways, vertically and horizontally. So the great 천주, cosmic great family. Because 천주 means the spirit world and physical world together. 천주 is what Father is the label that Father, the name that he gives is the entirety of God's creation. I know people who translate into English sometimes instead of using cosmic like to say heaven and earth. But just like Father gave a new definition to 천주 that's not in any Korean dictionary, I think we should allow him to give a new definition to the word cosmic as well. If you wanted to say heaven and earth, he would have said heaven and earth in Korean. So we form this cosmic great family, the cosmos, and then to complete 완성, 할 것을, complete the world of freedom, peace, unity, and happiness. Freedom, peace, unity, and happiness. So that is the number 4 then of the family pledge. Okay. All right. So let's go on. I think we can do one more today. Okay. And here, this is the English of number 4. Our family, the owner of Chanuguk. Okay. So here, our family, the owner of Chanuguk, that happens in the beginning also in the English, but then centering on true love in the English is all the way down at the bottom. Okay. Whereas in Korean, it's up here at the top. Okay. And I think that's why it's important for us to be able to learn this in Korean. You know, it's as I pointed out before, it's just one page, 8.5 by 11, or A4 if you're doing it the European style. It's just one page, and I think it'd be very, very good to be able uh, uh, to memorize this. I was very impressed, by the way, at the meeting in Switzerland, which, by the way, was not in Geneva. It was about 40 minutes from Geneva in Lausanne. Um, people gathered there from around Europe, and I was very impressed by the fact that they sang the Chanuguk national anthem in Korean. And it wasn't just the Koreans who were there who were singing. I listened carefully, and I mean, most of the uh, non-Koreans were also singing this national anthem in Korean. Um, and I think also the family pledge. It would be great if we could uh, memorize this or be able to at least read it in Korean, because the way the grammar works is different in whether the centering on true love comes at the end or at the beginning. I think it does make a difference in our understanding. So anyway, our family, so here our pledges. See, so here, so our family is pledging to build the universal family. Here, Chunju is being translated as universal, right? Universal family, or as the, or encompassing heaven and earth. Chunju Tekajok. Oh, I see. Encompassing heaven and earth. So they've got Chunju is translated as heaven and earth, but universal family. Universal actually does not appear in the Korean, does it? It's a great family, a large family, but that's kind of awkward. So they said, okay, well, let's do universal instead. But this is the problem when you translate something. You can only get so close to the original, and sometimes you start doing things that are actually not in the original. Not out of choice, but just to make it make sense. So the universal family and the meaning, I suppose you can say the meaning is there. Yeah, I know, but come on, it's different. Universal family covers here, which is God's ideal of creation. Okay, yes, it's the 하나님의 창조 이상인, which is God. 하나님의, this is what that is there. God's ideal of creation, and perfect the world, or complete the world. I would prefer to say the world of freedom, peace, unity, and happiness. And normally that would be the end of it, except, Meng Se Hanai, that would then come at the end. The verb would come at the end, but here they couldn't put centering on true love up here in the beginning, so they put it down here. So happiness, we pledge, our family pledges, something like that. All right, so building the universal family encompassing heaven and earth. Right. And this is the important part of that particular verse. That also, when we did the vows, there was the fourth vow, which said that we are promising to love humanity as God and true parents love humanity, in the same way that God and true parents love humanity. And I think that connects to this right here. Universal family encompassing heaven and earth, which is God's ideal of creation. In Revelation, it talks about how there will be no tears, that people will die, but that they will not be sad, because the original original design of creation is that when people shed their physical bodies, their spirit selves, their spirit bodies are still visible to people in the physical world, because we have not 5 senses, but 10 senses. We have the 5 physical senses and then the corresponding 5 spiritual senses. But as a result of the fall, division came about. There was a division between the spirit world and the physical world. And so we lost the use of those 5 spiritual senses for as long as we are in our physical bodies. When we go to the spirit world, our spiritual senses, our spiritual power of sight, hearing, feeling, touch, taste, so forth, all come into play. But as long as we are in our physical bodies, we cannot exercise those spiritual senses, except when, by God's special grace, our spiritual senses are opened up to us. And this is what happened when Jesus was resurrected, right? And I hope it doesn't come too much of a shock to you, but Father does not believe in the actual resurrection of Jesus's physical body, not his physical body. The physical body did not resurrect. It was his spiritual body, spiritual, substantial. Spiritual body is still substantial. And this is something that in the beginning you might have a difficulty getting your head around. But so when doubting Thomas said, I don't believe in Jesus, says, well, go ahead and touch me. Put your hand into the wound right here. Now, actually, if you look at the Bible, it doesn't say whether Thomas actually touched him or not. It doesn't say that. It may be that Jesus challenged Thomas, and then that was enough for Thomas to repent and say, oh, Lord, yeah. But if Thomas had touched him, he would have felt the same thing as if he were touching a physical body, because his spiritual senses have been opened up, and the spiritual senses of the other disciples have been opened up. Everyone in the room have been opened up as a result of God's special grace. And this is in instances like that, God can intervene, and he does intervene to open up a person's spiritual senses. And also where Jesus is eating, or at least appears to be eating fish together with the disciples there on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. So that is actually the way that human beings were created, where a person loses his physical body, but he's still very much visible to his relatives or everybody else who is still in the physical world. And so there's no sadness because we're not missing someone. There's no vacuum in our life as a result of someone, as we say, passing away. There's no longer the concept of passing away. They're still there. Just that we can't see them. Which, by the way, reminds me, Father is alive, okay? I sometimes hear people say, when Father was here, hey, newsflash, Father is still here. He's still here. He is as here now as he was before he shed his physical body. In fact, he's more here now than he was then, because now he's not limited by the limitations of his physical body now, right? So none of this when Father was here business. Please, let's stop that. I hear people saying that, especially when Family Federation. Oh, Father's no longer with us, so we can do whatever we want. Basically, is what they say. But Father's no longer with us, so I've heard them begin a sentence that way several times, and it really bothers me. He's here. He's here. And so I say that to you as a word of advice, and perhaps as a kind of a warning. If you think he's not here, then you're quite mistaken. And now he is no longer limited by time and space. And so he can be with every single person in the world at the same time. He's now omnipresent. Okay, his spirit is omnipresent, and so so anyway, that was how people were originally supposed to be. And everyone who ever lived, everyone that God ever created, is in the spirit world today, except for those of us who haven't yet gotten it, including, I believe, including those people who didn't have a chance to be born into the world, but for some reason or another, lost their physical lives while they were still in the womb. And so, those when we are finally in the ideal world, we'll be able to be with those people. And when we go to spirit world, even now, by the way, we'll be with those people, and they may have a thing or two to say about how we conducted ourselves on Earth when we had a chance to receive the returning Jesus and to follow His word, to follow His teachings and live life in a way that would not only bring about our resurrection, but the resurrection of our ancestors as well. Anyone else trying to work with us. Okay. So that's number 4. So let's go to number 5. Let's go to the English of number 5. Our family, the owner of Chanryuk, here we go, okay, same, all 8 verses begin the same way. Pledges, our family pledges to strive every day to advance the unification of the spirit world and the physical world as subject and object partners by centering on true love. So the result of the fall is that, one of the results is that the spirit world and physical world were separated from each other, divided from each other. And that's the reason, as I said, that we do not have those 5 spiritual senses with us as long as we are in the physical world, except in those instances where God is able to open up our spirit world, our spiritual senses through His special grace. See, I cannot check my camera to see if it's still on. I assume it is. Okay. So we are now. So then, in 5, we are pledging to bring about the unity of the spirit world and physical world. How do we do that? How do we do that? Well, we do that by accomplishing our portion of responsibility, by developing our character, and actually doing the things in 1, 2, 3, and 4 that leads into 5. So we are then, developing our love within the family, in the 4 realms of love, the 3 great generation kingships. And we are creating the cosmic family, peace, unity, and happiness. And then in that way, then we are striving every day to advance the unification of spirit world and physical world. And the point here being that the spirit world is in the subject partner position, and the physical world is in the object partner position. The spirit world is the world of cause, and the physical world is the world of result. The Bible in Genesis 1:1 says that God created the heavens and the earth, and Father teaches that this verse shows us that God created the spirit world first and the physical world next. He created the angelic world first, and then the physical world next. So, the spirit world is in the subject partner position, and the physical world is in the object partner position. The spirit world is actually where we are intended to go. That's our final destination. The physical world is not our final destination. We were all created to live with God eternally in the spirit world. After having accomplished our portion of responsibility here in the physical world. And as you know, we need a physical body in order to do that. And the reason that God created the world in this way, we can go into that at an OSTP lecture. But here, so unification of the spirit world and the physical world as subject and object partners, centering on true love. Let's look at the Korean of this. Oops, don't want to change anything here. I don't know where that came from. All right, 천유국 주인. Okay, so 천유국, so it's the shortened version of the 천주평화 통일국, or the cosmic world, cosmic nation cosmic nation or cosmic kingdom of peace and unity. 주인 being owner, 우리 가정은 our family. 참 사랑을 중심하고, so centering on true love. 매일 means every day. 매일 every day. 주체적 천상 세계와, so 주체적 means a subject partner. This is the adjective form. 주체 is a noun, and by putting 적 at the end, we turn a noun into an adjective. 주체적 천상 세계와, so this is the world of this. Here, Father expresses the spirit world as 천상 세계. In other words, the world, sort of the heavenly world. But the heavenly world includes hell in this 천상 세계. It's another, here Father is using 천상 세계 as another word for spirit world. Normally he would say 영계. That's the normal word for spirit world. But here it's the heavenly world. But it includes all. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not heavenly world with a capital H, but it's a heavenly world with a lowercase h, I would say. Okay, so 주체적 천상 세계와, of course, is the conjunction and. 태상적, again, 태상 is object partner, and 적, again, this is a little thing that turns a noun into an adjective. 태상적 지상 세계의, so 지상 means on the earth, literally, so physical world. 세계 is world. 지상 세계의 통일 향해. 통일 we know very well, unification. And 향해 means toward the unification of. So every day, toward the unification of the heavenly world that is in the subject partner position and the physical world that is in the object partner position. So 향해, what are we going to do? 전진적 발전을 촉진화할 것을. So 촉진화 means to facilitate, or to push forward. And 발전 means develop. And 전진 means to go forward, going forward. 전진. And again, we have a little thing that turns a noun into an adjective. 전진적 발전. So development, going forward development. It would be kind of a literal translation. Going forward development. We're going to facilitate that. We're going to push that forward. 것을 맹세하나이다. 맹세 again is the word for pledge. And 하다 would be sort of the basic form, but 하나이다 is a very formal. We would never, ever use that in conversation. Please don't, ever try to use 하나이다 in a conversation. People look at you very, very. It's not rude. It's just that kind of like speaking Shakespearean English to someone. It's an extremely formal expression, which never, ever, not in a million years, happens in conversation. So just please remember that. Okay. Do we have time for another one? Oh, no, we don't. Okay, we're already over time. Okay. So we got through 5, and we still have 6, 7, and 8 to go through. And so we will continue this exercise next week. As I said, the family pledge, Father said that this is the prayer of prayers. It's one of the 8 great textbooks and teaching materials. And I see the tech team has given me some kind of message in that. Okay, he was trying to tell me that I'm still on. All right, so I will see you next week, next Wednesday. Of course, we're still doing the daily King's Reports. Someone came up to me and they thought that I was only doing this on Wednesday. I was only doing King's Report on Wednesday. No. I'm glad that people are becoming aware. More people are becoming aware of the King's Report because of these Wednesday discussions. But don't forget the Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday reports as well. God bless, Godspeed, may His kingdom come quickly.